everyone. Thanks for tuning in. You're listening to Not So Giant Women with Ivy and Daria, Steven Universe podcast. We're bringing you another episode. And this time it is Space Race. What kind of predictions do we have for a title like this?
Some kind of attempt to get into space. We saw a few episodes ago, it's not necessarily something they can just do. Because Lapis had to go. Well, Lapis tried to build a water tower to get into space. She may not have been all there when she did that, but apparently getting into space takes some doing.
Yeah.
Which is possibly why we haven't done it so far. Or at least not in space. We've warped around the place.
That's right.
With some places I've wondered where they are.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't seen them up in the big black, to borrow an expression.
That is true. Yeah, it's not incredibly clear where a lot of the places they warp to are as such, but
yeah, for ages I thought some of them were pocket dimensions or something, and then people walked back from them. So I just don't know.
Yeah, or in some cases paddled.
Yeah,
with only wet bagels to eat. So let's see about this race.
All right, here we go.
We are the crystal gems. We'll always save the day. And if you think...
I think I'd rather be here on Earth.
With me!
Yeah, with you.
Oh, that was a doozy.
Yeah, it was kind of sad, but also incredibly hilarious.
Now that's the short version.
Yeah, or the slightly longer version. Our heroes warp into a place filled with other warp pads of varying sizes and stand on them to try them out, and they're all inactive and have been for a very, very long time. Stephen placed a crying breakfast friend sticker on all the ones that don't work, which, well, seems it's going to be all of them. Pearl explains that these galaxy warps are the ones that will get them into space, off Earth, out there, as it were, and mentions that there were many, many gem-controlled planets out in space, and unfortunately doesn't hit upon the term Gempire to describe them. But this makes Pearl wistful and sad, which in turn makes Stephen sad for her. So he gets Greg's help to build a spaceship. Greg is doubtful, but Stephen says people have done it before, and we're people, and Greg takes that on board that they are indeed people.
Yeah.
And they build a quote-unquote spaceship, which is essentially a go-kart that they bring in Pearl to show it to her, and she is, spaceship, right. The spaceship cart simply falls apart going down the hill towards a ramp and doesn't even take off at all. Stephen fortunately bails. Greg says his calculations didn't go wrong, he simply didn't make any. Pearl starts to explain how a spaceship would really work, and she catches her own enthusiasm and decides, yes, they really are going to build one, because as we've seen, there's a warehouse, I think it's a barn, filled with Greg's aunts and uncles' aviation stuff, which Pearl says, albeit primitive, might be able to build them a workable spacecraft. Greg is starting to get cold feet, and what the hell are we doing about this? Greg basically turns into Pearl in this regard for a lot of the episode, and after some varied success with components and test flights and another montage, Pearl has completed the Universe Mark III, which is what she cobbled together after Greg an end to the Universe Boys' involvement in the scheme. While Greg is asleep and talking about bananas, she takes Stephen up in the Mark III, and this does wake Greg up, and she says, don't worry, we're just popping over to the next star system. And this time they do address how far apart things are in space, because she says she'll have him back in only 50 years. Greg knows he'll be dead in 50 years, so explored some of his health issues last week. I'm not even sure he's got 50 years to his name. But Stephen isn't impressed at this either, but Pearl is basically possessed with the idea of missing space and wanting to show Stephen what it's like out there. And the Mark III heads up and out of the atmosphere through the stratosphere, and Stephen blows the hatch and repeats to Pearl what he was told earlier, that sometimes it's okay to bail. And this finally gets through to Pearl that much as she wanted to, she can't take Stephen to space right now. They eject, mercifully survive the destruction of the Mark III. Greg observes from a distance that this kid is going to kill him at this rate. And Pearl has come to her senses and realized she wants to stay on Earth with Stephen for now. And we star out.
Few episodes in a row that feature Greg.
Yeah, and Pearl and Greg, the relationship we talked about last time, and really Pearl theatre this week. They only see the others right at the start, and Pearl and Greg interacting a lot with the spaceship idea, which starts as a mad dream of Stephen's and turns to a mad dream of Pearl's.
Yeah, it's a little frightening to see her in this state because she's the level-headed one. Like you were talking about in the summary, that Greg was more like the usual Pearl. With reasonable expectations, whereas Pearl was taking a lot of chances and seemed kind of not okay for a significant part of this episode. That's kind of the first time we see her seem unhinged.
Yeah, but believably so. Mm-hmm. Combining her nostalgia and missing space in the first scene with the angled in front of her the idea of actually building a spaceship and get back, it was quite believable that would burrow in and start to cloud her better judgment.
Right. It really struck me when I saw this that even though she's usually at least somewhat practical, I mean, we see her suffer from like some anxiety, some frustration when things are not perfect and stuff. But this is really kind of the first time you see her almost break with reality. Because, I mean, Stephen, his life was endangered by her actions, and she developed this short-lived obsession that really endangered him. And, if she was fully present, rooted in her usual rules for living life, she never would have done something like that. So it really kind of felt like the first, I don't want to say the first, but one early kind of peek into more about the layers that Pearl might have, because if she can break like that, it's hinting at something else. You
really get the idea that she's kind of just been getting by all this time on Earth.
Yeah.
That she's been managing, and as soon as we had a crack in that might enable her to get out, that crack was enough to break her. And I mean, normally she'd know quite well that even if the Mark III had functioned perfectly, that 50 years is no blink of an eye to humans. I mean, I don't know if Stephen being half gem would take care of that, but it's still a long time.
Yes. And
even if his aging is slowed down because he's half gem or something, then, he's still going to have to wait 50 years to get home.
Right. And that's also, it seems to have not taken into account some stuff that she was clearly aware of earlier in the same episode where, I mean, when she asked, where can we get a spacesuit for Stephen so he doesn't freeze or explode? But they don't get one.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
No food in there either. What's he going to eat?
Yeah, exactly. And interestingly, I was noting in that when she is the only of the main three gems to join in on this, I think that also kind of fueled her along. I think if Amethyst, for example, had been around saying, yeah, let's build a spaceship, that would kick in her, no, don't be silly about such things, Amethyst, because you're Amethyst and you say silly things. Whereas
yes, you're right.
Now all she has to do is be wiser than the humans, which she definitely thinks she is. And so she says, of course I can build interstellar spacecraft from bits of 20th century aviation crap in a barn.
That's right. Yeah. I can't see the three of them standing around trying to make a spaceship, even led by Pearl, and having one of the other two, even Amethyst, could have talked her out of that and said, like, dude, this is not going to work.
Does tie in of her mechanical abilities from last time, but she wasn't necessarily using them to the best way. I mean, on the face of it, some kind of vehicle to quickly get around just in the sphere they're in would be a good thing, except, of course, it became all about leaving the planet. So that was the end of the Mark III.
Yeah. This is the first time you get any sense of nostalgia from her either, that she's got this wistfulness about a life that she had before whatever her life is now. And you don't hear any of them talk about it. And the other two don't join in that or talk about what they would do if they went to space.
Amethyst butts into Pearl's revelry by wandering on screen and scratching her bum. So
yeah, if they weren't all busted, she says. No, that's true. Pearl says she wishes that she could show it to Stephen and that it's incredible out there and that maybe from a distance she could see what's been going on without her. Like that there's some roots there that she's hinting at without Stephen not asking follow-up questions, so we don't get to know. But it's really showing a whole kind of previous life for her that now we know she misses.
Yeah. Amethyst is probably like, do they have hot dogs in space? I don't think so. I'm fine.
She definitely seems like she's quite happy with the food aspect of Earth.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Garnet doesn't really interject except about the raw functionality of the galaxy warps, which almost mentioned in passing during Mirror Gem. We just never found out anything about them, but now we have.
Right. We just heard from Pearl that they found Lapis's mirror there.
And she was going to tell more about them, but that's when Mirror Lapis went into a sulk.
Yep. So only a couple episodes later, we actually get to see the galaxy warp. So we know that they were used to go to other planets, and they are all wrecked, except for the one that they used to get to the galaxy warp.
Yeah, and you get the impression it's something they regularly check on just in case they've sprung back into life or whatever.
Yes.
Or if someone's fixed them from the other end or something, but that it's old news that they're all broken. Possibly worth checking again after the Lapis thing, see if anyone's going to try to come through them.
Yeah, definitely seems like that would have triggered them to say, well, let's find out what's going on with our access to space on this.
No talk of Stephen trying to spit heal them, so again, whether that's because they're not living things or his powers are still broken or he just can't fix warp pads or machines with his spit, we don't know, but again, we don't know if they're machines or if they're something like the geode, or if these are like not sapient but somehow weird living technology. We haven't really gone into that sort of thing.
We really haven't.
Quasi living crystal technology is a big thing in Superman stuff. So
I see.
Yeah, Kryptonians is big on crystals.
Now I'm thinking of potential crossovers.
Well, there are some moments in Superman things with crystals recrystallizing and things could be straight out of this. But anyway, I guess that's sort of their job for the week. Then they just go back home until Pearl ends up in the Universe space program.
Yeah,
another grounded joke straight after. So this time he's using it in the aeronautics sense.
Yeah. I thought that was a really interesting dynamic when he kind of invoked his parental rights there. He sort of almost tried to pull rank, like, no, you're not doing it. I forbid it. You're not taking him to space. And she doesn't recognize his authority, but it's interesting that he felt that he could do that because it's like, well, this is my kid. I'm saying no.
Well, Stephen recognized his authority, and this is one of the few times he's actively displayed any over Stephen, which when we're deep diving into his character last week, showed he's not just a layabout deadbeat. He's hit the point of, okay, my kid watching cartoons all day, that's one thing, but trying to go to space and possibly burning up or suffocating or all the rest of it, that's the fridge too far.
Yes.
Despite what Pearl says, you don't explode in space, but Pearl might just not know that.
Yeah.
He doesn't understand how humans work.
Yeah. Unless there's something else that's trying to explode you.
Yeah.
Maybe she expected something of that nature. I don't know.
Yeah,
I really don't know what her plan was or if she had one. I mean, Pearl without a plan is unusual, so.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, she just seemed to be just planning to point straight up and go. And she mentioned at the start the other gem-controlled worlds, but there was no hint of sort of, did she plan to look in on them or anything? I suppose she said, I wonder what it's been like since I've been gone, but I know they also expressed reservations about running into anyone they know from space. So she's definitely breaking down in the coherence of her plan already.
Yeah. I wonder if, given that, like with Pearl and Greg kind of fighting over who gets to boss Steven around and say what he's allowed to do, I wonder if he's got like a legal identity. Like, does Steven have a birth certificate or whatever?
Oh, good question, especially because, as explored last time, he lives in the United States, where there's very big deals about having a social security number and things.
Yes.
There are some countries where if you're identityless on paper, it is easier than others to restore or create that. Whereas I've heard all kinds of horror stories of not having a social security number from the US.
Yes. And this is at least some approximation of the United States. So,
yeah, well, I mean, registering his birth would be difficult. I mean,
yes.
This is a shiny new baby. I'm the father. The mother isn't here. Oh, did she die in childbirth? Well, she gave up her physical form.
Mm-hmm.
What
was her name? Where are her papers?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be complicated. I mean, he has one parent with a legal identity, but how that shakes out when you don't have the person around anymore who gave birth to him, and there's also no death of the mother. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, we don't know where it happened. We don't know how it happened. So.
And any sort of playing him off as a foundling tricks would risk Steven getting taken away from Greg and the others.
Yeah, by all the obvious social services in Beach City.
Well, that's one thing. I guess maybe they all work at the hospital, so they're just not doing anything.
So I think that I'm not sure exactly where it is, but this new location, the barn, might be outside the city or might be sort of far away from the city.
Yeah, it certainly seems the outskirts heading away from the beach.
Mm-hmm. It was kind of a cool little atmosphere, a new location.
And a lot greener than what we usually see in Beach City.
It's what?
A lot greener.
Greener, yes. It's like there's the barn and open fields and stuff. So Greg says that it was owned by his aunt and uncle who put all their stuff in there, like him in his storage shed. They're all pack rats. And it's kind of interesting.
His aunt looks a bit like Rose, or at least what we've seen of Rose so far. So make of that what you will.
Yeah, it's interesting. Seems to be the first time I think Greg mentioned family. So he's got some kind of history, and this was family property.
You know, they talk about people marrying people who remind them of their father or their mother or whatever. So maybe it applies to aunts too.
Could be.
And we don't know which one, if either were blood related to him.
It was interesting that they had all that stuff lying around in there that first they could build a go-kart and then it just got more complicated with all these plane parts.
And bits of washing machines and things. And obviously Pearl brought some advanced know-how to the table, but
mm-hmm.
I mean, it looks unlikely it would have made it to the next star system, but the Mark III was actually a viable short-range vehicle in itself. So she's got some nous there.
Mm-hmm. And for some reason, part of the controls was a piano.
Yeah, I noticed that. So I'm guessing she just used whatever she found and reminded me of that her incidental music is usually piano-based.
Yep. She played a really dissonant chord on it, too, when she was using it as a control. I like musical nerd stuff like that.
But there are a lot of hilarious little moments in there. Like the aforementioned grounding thing. I mean, Pearl becoming unhinged is concerning, but there were some funny stops along the way.
Agreed. Ooh, space travel? It's funny.
Yeah. And we had a few of suddenly appearing on backgrounds there with Pearl's Reverie and Steven's branding Universal.
Yeah. I like the cute little sleeping bag he was in.
Oh, that was adorable.
Yeah. And like you mentioned about Greg muttering in his sleep about, don't give him the banana. That's what he wants. What are you dreaming about, Greg? And I like the advice that Greg gave him about sometimes you got to know when to bail, and kind of like the pork chop thing. It comes back in a more serious context.
Yeah.
He seems to have a lot of advice that surrounds like mistakes or imperfectness.
Well, for all that we say he's not a deadbeat, he's certainly not perfect either. So
right.
I'd say he's bounced back, but he certainly knows about making mistakes.
Yeah. And he definitely, like, I don't know if I want to use the language to say he redeemed himself, but he definitely had Stephen's best interest at heart throughout this entire episode, where he knew where the line was, where it stopped being safe.
Yeah. In some ways, you could see him as shirking his parental responsibilities in other moments, but it's just that he keeps them in a slightly different, as you say, the line is in a different place that might be for some other people.
Mm-hmm.
He's not overly concerned with his kid watching cartoons and not eating the best food.
Right.
But there is a long way between that and he's going to go into space or fail to go into space and possibly die.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of watching cartoons, what do you think of that? Breakfast Friends.
Oh, good heavens, what was that? At first I thought it was weird enough when we saw the stickers. It was like, oh, this is the show. It's breakfast food that cries. It's what it says on the tin.
And Stephen is like, yes, this is my favorite. He's just watching that.
And for some reason, crying is in quotes on the title.
I know. Maybe they appear to be crying, but it's not actually tears coming out of them. They are food. They shouldn't have tear ducts or eyes at all.
Or emotions.
Yeah. Yeah, I've actually got a thing about food with faces. I do not like it. I don't like anything that tells you to eat it, and I don't like anything that does the opposite, where it tries to get away from being eaten. I've always hated any kind of commercial or packaging or advertisements that either want you to eat something sentient or want you not to.
Yeah, particularly weird when it's like something that's already been turned into its final food form, if you will.
Yeah. Yes.
And it raised a lot of questions, like it's not just, say, a pig telling you to eat it, it's a sausage telling you to eat it.
Right. It's like, theoretically, you're not alive if you're a sausage. I don't know about that.
You know, I've seen a few food mascots, and indeed including meat mascots that do that.
Yeah, I do not like it. There's the Chick-fil-A cow over here. That it's always these cows. Do you have that over where
I've
you
heard
live?
of it. No, we don't have it here. We don't have that.
Okay, good. But their mascots are cows that hold misspelled signs that tell you to eat chicken.
Oh,
it disturbs me so much.
There's a very weird one near where I live in what passes for our Chinatown, in which it's kind of got a bunch of animals farming the meat from, like, on a farm.
Ooh.
But it becomes even more disturbing. It's like, so are these like overlord animals that decided their kin were ripe for farming and eating?
That is incredibly disturbing.
And also artistically, it's a bit weird because all the farmer animals, despite being a chicken and a cow and all the rest, are all the same size.
Oh my, okay. This is just some kind of horror show.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, the cow-sized chicken on its own is scary enough.
Oh, Lord. Ugh. So it's a cow-sized chicken, not a chicken-sized cow.
Well, it's hard to tell because we're only seeing them in relation to the other animals, but okay, the chicken-sized cow would be just kind of cute.
Well, it's all disturbing, so let's just...
But they're both the same size as the pig, and there's a dog there. I don't know if they're trying to say they have dog meat or if it's just dogs work on farms or...
Oh, my gosh.
I think whoever made this just didn't think it through.
Yeah, there were some judgment glitches clearly operating in this advertisement.
That, or they knew people would stop and stare at it going, what the hell? And they were hoping people would just be snared and come into the shop.
There is a commercial for, now I don't remember what kind of cereal this is. So they have done their job poorly because all I remember is the horror of this concept. But this cereal, they portray pieces of this cereal as running around like they have faces and they're running around maniacally trying to eat each other. And they're cannibalistic, maniacal pieces of cereal.
That doesn't make me want to eat the cereal.
No. And it's supposed to be wacky, but I'm like, no, that's so disturbing. I hate it.
Makes me wonder if the cereal is going to try to eat me from inside as revenge.
Right? I don't know. It's just, anyway. I mean, I'm a vegetarian and I don't like to eat things that I imagine would run from pain. It's just, personally, I don't believe I could be involved in the catching and killing and slaughtering of an animal. So I've just chosen personally not to pay someone to do that for me. So I don't know if it's not necessary. It's kind of not a moral thing. It's more like just grosses me out and I just can't go through with it, I guess.
That's fair. I know someone who's vegetarian because they hate animals. So.
Oh, see, I'm not really that much of an animal person. Like, I like them in theory and I love looking at cute pictures and watching cute animal videos and stuff. But I don't really like being around like animals that do anything like sniff you or, you know, that you have to take care of their bodily functions and stuff. I'm mostly very hands-off. So I've kind of joked about how I'm not really that big of a fan of animals even on my plate.
That's fair.
But I care very much about their welfare. So, you know, I'll just give money to charities that help take better care of them and care about their rights and stuff. But I don't think that extends to cereal rights.
No, my other friend has established is quite dark. She has no interest in animal welfare. She just thinks it's disgusting that she just hates animals so much she doesn't want to put them in her mouth. Is
she vegan?
Vegetarian, obviously.
Oh, okay.
She's one of those. She's one of those. If it's not actually the animal per se, she's fine. I don't know.
Okay, so she hates animals, but she'll drink their milk and eat their eggs.
Yeah, I mean, once someone's established something like that, there's only really so much you can question it.
That's true. But, you know, ultimately it's every individual's choice.
Yeah, I mean, what am I going to say? Oh, your approach is wrong, therefore you must eat this beef.
Yes. You know, though, this kind of extends to other aspects of advertising for me where I don't even like when packaging is like, buy me or try me or I talk. I just don't like when inanimate things are talking to me.
No, so don't have sapience where it's not necessary. Yeah.
So I love Steven Universe, but I don't think I would share his taste in cartoons. I would not watch Crying Breakfast Friends.
No.
I'd be Greg. I'd be like, I used to like cartoons. I must be getting old.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure also that's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek self-joke. It's,
you
know, very different cartoons. Even Steven Universe, very different cartoon than when today's older adults would have been children.
That's right. Yeah. But I guess probably Steven is more involved in appreciating the free emotions of these food items and that they can cry and express themselves. I'm starting to laugh. I can't say that seriously. But yeah, all we got to see was a little smidgen of it where they're all just crying and falling over.
Yeah, and you end up wondering, is this what every episode of the show is like?
Perhaps. We don't get to know at this point.
I'm sure someone, mind you, I'm sure as soon as it went out, someone would have written in and said, can we have a Crying Breakfast Friends spin-off?
Wonder what that would be like. Ooh, one thing I forgot to say when we were talking about the funny things that were sprinkled in, even though there was kind of a serious undertone, is that when Pearl is giving her big speech about how it would be great to do this project, and then she just interrupts herself to say, this chair is disgusting. And then she keeps talking.
Well, and while that's going on, she holds out the bit of fluff to Greg, who just kind of
hands it to him.
Confusedly takes it.
Yeah. But later she's put that chair in the spaceship.
Yeah. Not too disgusting for you, I guess, Pearl.
Yeah. I guess she figures she'd rather have that to sit in for 50 years than nothing.
Yeah, I like her self-made flight suit too.
Yeah. We did see her magically change her clothes.
Yeah. I wonder if gem bodies need flight suits for the same reason humans do, or if she just was getting in the mood.
Yeah, wanted to look the part. Yeah, that was unexpected. She definitely looked more kind of business-like, less like she was dressed to do a dance.
Yeah, and she got old school. She was using the blackboard, not perlograms.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that because she could have shown exactly what she was thinking about just by projecting it from her head. And instead she followed precedents set by Steven, where he just drew himself in a rocket blasting off, and she just replaced that with an intricate diagram.
Yeah, so she's got some drawing talent with her hands as well as her head.
Yeah. I like seeing expressions of nerd Pearl.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Follow-up questions!
What do you say to a probing question.
Yes, go on. Sorry, I was distracted on the food thing again, but...
Oh, well, pork chops and hot dogs. Do you have any theories on why does Pearl seem more like wistful about space than the others?
Well, I think we sort of looked at why Amethyst isn't so wistful. She's very much an in-the-moment person and has plenty to amuse her here on Earth. So we don't know that she doesn't care about space, but certainly isn't as cut up about it as Pearl is. Mm-hmm. And Garnet, part of her inscrutability, but also maybe her pragmatism. Mm-hmm. Yes, space is nice, but we can't get into space, so we're going to concentrate on what we're trying to do here. And again, I suppose anyone's reaction is tied up with the question mark over what does it mean if anything or anyone directly from space finds them again?
Right.
It could be if you're not as emotionally lost in it as Pearl is, that the realities sort of override any, I want to get back out into space, because you're going, I want to get back into space. Wait, no, I don't, because I'm worried that Lat has grasped on me to the gem cops or something.
Which they may have a better police force than we've seen in Beach City, which is non-existent.
Yeah. Well, I'm prepared to believe the Beach City police force is 2 dudes on shorts riding bikes around.
Yeah. They're probably just hanging out on the beach all the time.
Oh, they're probably too busy cleaning up after Onion.
There you go. On this subject, I was kind of thinking like Pearl was really the only one who expressed any opinion about how she felt about the cosmos. She seems wistful is the word that I was using. And at least at this point in watching the episodes, I was not sure whether Garnet and Amethyst not really saying anything about like whether they would like that or whether they wouldn't like to go back to space is...
Well, I think Garnet literally doesn't say anything at that point.
Yeah, she's just saying when... I think the only thing she says is when Steven asks, can we fix them? She says no. So it's... You don't know how they feel about it. You only know how Pearl feels about it. So it's hard to tell if they don't have feelings about it or if the episode didn't have space for them to say how they felt about it one way or the other.
Yeah, and because Pearl was the most vocal about it, she was the one that Universe Boys called to make a spaceship, so we don't know how either of the other two would have reacted solo to spaceship building.
Yeah.
Because Garnet's usually pragmatic, but we've seen she's occasionally victim to strange flights of fancy.
It's true. Yeah, just get her in front of a video game.
Well, there you go. Maybe that's how she's easing the gap in her life from space. She's just found some space video games to get lost in.
Oh, she goes into her room and just plays video games that it's a spaceship shooting asteroids. She's found a way to modify it so that she gets to punch them instead.
Ooh, that'd be fun. I think someone probably just bought her a Kinect for her non-birthday and she's been putting that just punching stuff.
Yeah. I don't think it would be a good idea to let her actually punch anything for humans, though, because she'll just destroy it like that Punch Buddy game.
True.
She's way stronger than that. But, I mean, she could punch the ground. I don't think that she can beat up Earth.
No, I mean, I guess if she thought she had to, she'd try, but... Or
she could just punch one of those immovable walls from the Lion episode.
Oh, yeah, just make a few targets on that so she can... shadow box or hit some moving lights.
Trust me to try to make a whole discussion about Garnet in an episode that doesn't have her in it hardly at all.
No, I think she might have literally said 2 words.
Yeah. I always laugh at when something like that happens and I realize, okay, they must have had to have this voice actor come in and record 1 line. And that happens for Garnet in an episode where she's there the whole time sometimes.
You often wonder, is Estelle done by lunch and goes home early?
She has talked about that in some of her interviews, and she's said sometimes it seems a little bit disappointing that she'll come in and do her recordings, and it seems like everybody else gets to have all the fun, but then she'll actually get to see the finished episode, and then she'll say, my one-liners are often some of the best ones. Especially in context, you get to see. So I assume that they get to see the whole script, but if they're not in an episode, they might not get to see some of the episodes in between their appearances.
Yeah, I mean, I know back in the day, they used to just get people to come in and just gives them a list of lines to read. But from what I've heard, it works very differently in the here and now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've seen behind the scenes footage of everyone gathered around in their booths or at their microphones or whatever. And it's a bit like one of the radio plays on stage they used to do more often.
Mm-hmm. In the case of Estelle, I believe she didn't get to be in a lot of the group recordings because of where she lived.
I've been wondering about that, actually, yeah.
So, I mean, she's been to some of them. I know that there have been recordings where she's with the group, but a lot of the time she's not. And I heard also that's true of Greg's voice actor, that a lot of times he was not there.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I just knew enough about Estelle to know she was pretty busy back home.
Right. And that she can't be going out to LA all the time to record 2 lines.
Yeah. And as far as I knew, she wasn't one of those people who had relocated to America because they'd become so famous.
Right. Yeah, she already was quite famous enough for something else. Oh, that's her.
Other than the crying breakfast friends, there was little in the way of food this week. If we saw the sandwiches, the blowtorch sandwiches.
You noticed the blowtorch sandwiches. Well, guess what I did?
Did we have an actual blowtorch?
I do. Yeah,
I did it with a Bunsen burner once, and I just feel inadequate now.
So I did indeed cook a cheese sandwich with a blowtorch, and I didn't go out and buy a blowtorch for this.
This was my next question.
It is a small kitchen blowtorch.
Oh, it's one of those, yeah, like for creme brulees and stuff.
Yes. Years and years ago, I was at a party where they had creme brulee, and the hostess of the party came out with one of these little bitty blowtorches and cooked the sugar in front of us. And I was like, I must do this. So I bought one to make creme brulee, and I did make creme brulee. But then I had this blowtorch that I tried to cook a sandwich with. And I have to say it was not super effective. The cheese was not melted inside, even though there was clearly a flame on this thing. So, I mean, I would probably need to get an industrial grade blowtorch the way that they did. I also wore a football helmet to approximate the face shield.
Yeah. When I did it with the Bunsen burner, it was a slice of bread, so there was a bit more.
And then it kind of tasted like and smelled like gas.
Yeah, that was, and I guess especially if there's sort of the cheese to trap the smell in.
Yeah. Was not one of my better moments, but at least I can say I did it. It was cute how Stephen and Greg are sitting there eating these blowtorch grilled cheese sandwiches. I'm assuming they're cheese sandwiches. And Pearl is sitting there in the center, just kind of looking satisfied for some reason. I did really enjoy that reveal that it looked like they're welding or something, but then you pull back and they're just making a sandwich.
Yeah. It also kind of shows the differing levels of dedication to this project.
Yeah.
Pearl has dived straight into advanced engineering, and they've got the cheese sarnies out. And
yeah. Meanwhile, Pearl is talking about F1 single nozzle liquid rocket fuel or whatever. I like the shot of Stephen with 2 hammers. He has a hammer in each hand, and he's just indiscriminately banging with both hands. Like, I don't even know if he's hitting a nail.
No, I think the nails are already in, and I think what he's doing is, I don't know, he's just enjoying hammering so much he hasn't stopped.
Yeah. He's got that look on his face, almost like the look on his face he had when Pearl was explaining the Fribo stuff, and his eyes just kind of slightly in separate directions. And he's hammering. He's working. He's enjoying himself.
Actually, a huge hammer would make a great gem weapon.
Oh. You think we'll ever get a gem with a weapon that's a hammer? Superlight almost had one.
Yeah, so I'm thinking it could be possible. Maybe not a hardware hammer per se, but one of those big ones, like it's more like a huge mallet or something. I could
like
imagine one of those. So,
yeah.
I mean, I'm taking as read if there are more gems to come that will need a variety of weapons.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, we've only met, I suppose, technically 5 so far, and we haven't seen any doubling up of weapons.
That's right.
But if they do end up introducing more and more, and I guess it's the same thing as sooner or later, if you introduce more and more, you're going to start running out of coherent actual names of gems too. So.
Yeah. Lapis didn't really have a weapon per se, but she had wings and water powers.
Yeah, she had more a power set.
Yeah, it wasn't clear whether that was in addition or what.
But yeah, we didn't see her breaking out glowing blue nunchaku or anything.
Mm-hmm. Maybe it's just like a fire hose.
Yeah, and it's perpetually extending from her gem. She can't pull it all the way out. The hose has to connect to her back.
She has to turn around to use it, so she doesn't have great aim. It was funny. What if her gem was not on her back and the wings still had to come out of it?
Yeah, there are places that will be less than aerodynamic or less than convenient. I mean, well,
with a nose gem.
amethyst on her chest, you wouldn't be able to see where you're going with the wings.
You just fly upside down.
If you had them like from pearls on your head, then, you know, I mean, well, it's got to be a strain on your neck.
Yeah. Ooh, well.
Good work from the hands, like Garnet. A bit awkward, but not as much as some of the others would be.
It's true. Yeah. So you just have to hope that maybe it doesn't matter where your gem is, they still come out of your back.
Maybe the gem evolution or mother gem nature or whatever plans these things better.
Yeah. So we did not really have music again.
Yeah, had some nice bits of score, but
yes,
no big songs or anything.
Yeah, there was a little bit of song kind of in like the commercials and stuff when he's watching cartoons. There's kind of this background track. It's called After These Messages. So like just noise coming out, and it's musical noise.
It's very leave the Hammond organ running kind of music, as these weird shows often do.
Yeah, they had some cute background music when they're building stuff, of course. We talked about that. And then the one that really was a highlight for me is the music they played when they're approaching space.
That's the one I was thinking of when I first brought up the score.
Yeah, and appropriately, they called that piece Almost There, which is sort of heartbreaking. I really like the way they drew Pearl's eyes in that, where she's just transfixed and clearly very sorrowful about, she just wants to get there. She wants to show it to Stephen for some reason. And
somewhat manic, really. It's actually a little scary.
Yeah.
That they could get all that into what are basically a few circles is amazing.
I agree. And I've heard Rebecca Sugar talk about this in comics and cartoons, that she really likes, like, to some extent, she thinks it's kind of funny to do this, but in general, she just really likes taking very basic cartoon characters and giving them expressions that have complexity that you don't see on those kinds of faces very often. She apparently got, I don't know if she got made fun of or what, but she suggested that people had negative reactions to some of the ways that she would draw characters with lots of sort of like lines on their faces, looking very sad or looking depressed, or just having their faces kind of hang around like Pluto or something, like a cartoon dog. And she really likes doing that. She likes making them very expressive, even though you don't usually see that on somebody that doesn't even have eyelashes or eyebrows. You know?
I think it must be a challenge when you're just doing a character that doesn't have a full range of facial features. I mean, Garnet, design-wise, effectively doesn't. Her eyes are covered most of the time.
Yeah.
Granted, she expresses very little emotional range for the most part anyway. It means you've got to fit everything essentially through the bottom half of her face, and which mostly means her mouth. Yes.
Yeah, I was going to mention Garnet specifically, is that she is made up of so few lines when it comes to her face that a little change means a lot in context. I once noticed that there was a moment, it's not in an episode we've seen, but just like a happy face and it just turns down, and I'm like, that was all that moved, and all of a sudden she's not happy, she's sad. I'm like, wow, that was one line.
And because she doesn't move the rest of her body most of the time either. Mm-hmm. So it's not like some effectively faceless characters where you could just have them slump and loll about the place or jump. Right. And with Garnet, it's all very slight.
Yeah, she's very stiff, like stoic body-wise. Whereas Pearl, especially in this episode, like we definitely saw the expressions on her face that were very emotive, and also just the way that she moves. you see sort of tension in her hands, sometimes the way she clenches her fists or moves around and is very fluid most of the time. But sometimes she acts with her whole body. And so does Amethyst. Pearl's stiffness is very different from Garnet's.
Yeah, towards the end there, it's a sort of body language that you would get very uncomfortable with if you saw it from a person right next to you.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Putting aside that she has this very long, pointy nose that people tend not to have. In real life, that would already be weird.
I think that's another thing of good character design, that we're still getting the emotions out of this even when they have these inhuman traits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cosplayers sometimes struggle with whether to replicate the Pearl nose or not.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the weird things about cartoons to reality is like, is that a huge nose in universe, or is that just part of the cartoon design and she's just got a pointy but reasonably regular nose? Right.
Because then you can look at characters like Lars, who essentially doesn't have ears. He just has empty gauges that are just his earlobes. Mm. And that can't be real. So it's just, you're right. There's other characters that have sort of pointier noses, but...
I've seen a fan art of Pearl, in fact, of the main three, that went to great lengths to real-world humanize their look.
Oh, okay.
And, yeah, when one of my friends was curating nice, safe things for me to look at.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, this fan art, which is just a fairly... which in terms of what it actually shows is just the gem standing ready for battle, so there's nothing spoilery in there. And in fact, Pearl's in her original outfit, so that's how unspoilery it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, it gave Pearl as close as you could come to her cartoon nose on a real person's body, but everything else is sort of everything is sort of put back into proportion. Her eyes aren't huge discs, they're regular eyes. Amethyst is shorter and squatter, but she's not quite the near spherical proportion she has under some character designs. Mm-hmm. And and Garnet's muscles look that bit more toned, and she's slightly shorter, probably in a closer to regular human size effort, or it's just to fit her in the picture.
Mm-hmm. I've seen some interesting fan art where people will humanize the gems, and sometimes they'll go more into like trying to make them look like particular types of people that they think they would be the closest to. And they had rendered Pearl as sort of an old-timey kind of like a classic dresser, and she had kind of a big hat and stuff, very sort of proper lady kind of look to her. So really cool fan art. I wonder if I could still find that, but they were all standing at a bus stop together. And it shows Pearl kind of anxiously looking forward to see if she can see the bus. They had Amethyst as a short, squat young person kind of leaning against the bus stop sign, I think. And Garnet was kind of bodybuilder looking.
Yeah. Actually, the one I saw, it was Amethyst was made that much more beefy, probably as a way to express her thickness in this art style.
Mm-hmm. Cool, yeah.
And Pearl definitely has, as we've often gone back to in this one, it definitely looks like a dancer's physique, a classical dancer's physique and pose. So this artist, whoever they were, and my friend never said it was someone they knew of or not, definitely knew what they were doing in this interpretation.
That's cool. I haven't really done a lot of that. I like to draw fan art, but I keep it very close to the style of the show almost all the time.
Yeah, but I've started one, and in what little breaks I have, occasionally keep along on it, but it's very much trying to do it in the style of the show itself.
Yeah.
And the main feature is Amethyst, which surprises no one.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that before, and I still haven't seen the finished product, so I figured you hadn't completed it.
Yeah, I need some good sit down and draw time is the thing. Mm-hmm. I'm also not nearly as fast an artist as I wish.
Yeah. Especially if you've never done a particular character before. Yeah, I did once do a webcomic, and I once tried to draw the gems in the style of if they were characters in my webcomic, and it kind of made me uncomfortable. So,
I used to do such a comic, but all the characters were cats, and for a short while, the in-demand thing was people requesting me to draw them as if they were one of the cats in the webcomic.
Oh, that's cool. That's neat.
Oh, that one also did address the strangeness of animal characters and food, because I went all the way up the other end of ridiculousness, and cheeseburgers were mined.
They were mined. Oh, That's
from
hilarious.
the ground.
Yeah. You just have a cheeseburger farm or something that you dig them up.
Yeah.
In a quarry. Wow.
Decided to ignore the ethical questions by making it ridiculous.
Wow. That is cool, though. I like that. I like going to the absurdist end of it. It's pretty fun.
If only I had known that.
I might have a few factoids left.
Oh, yeah, let's go.
Okay, the artists on it were Jeff Flew and Joe Johnston.
Mm-hmm.
And their quote for the description was, Stephen attempts to build a spaceship to let Pearl revisit the wonders of the cosmos. That's not too bad.
Yeah, I
like that.
It is, I mean, as far as story goes, it's actually fairly thin, so...
Yeah.
Not much plot, it's all character business, really.
Right. And that plot is kind of established at the very beginning that they're doing this for Pearl. I'm sure that you probably noticed when you saw the title that it being Space Race, one of the little factoids is that it's a reference to the space race of the United States versus Russia to get a functioning spacecraft to actually leave the atmosphere. So that's what they were doing, but they weren't really racing against anyone. So I'm not sure why they picked that title.
Maybe just sounded cool.
Yeah. And the only other factoid that I thought was relevant for this one is I heard, this is another one about kind of different markets, different countries that the show airs in. They had a lot of trouble with the grounding pun that we were talking about because in a lot of languages, grounding doesn't mean what it means in English. So they had to figure out some other way of,
I always wonder how those things work. I did listen to, this is slightly tangent. I did listen to an episode of Lexicon Valley. That's it. And there was an interview with someone who translates shows for other markets. And the entire thing is about how they had to, the lengths they went to just translate one joke in the show.
I guess that would probably really highlight how much of humor is dependent on language.
Yeah. Oh, I'm really curious as to how they got that.
I don't know what they settled on in I don't know any examples of stuff that they altered Greg's dialogue to be, but imagine that they had to put something in there to make it translate. I don't know.
Yeah, and you can't just play it straight because Stephen reacts to it the way he does.
Yep.
And I know that happens a lot trying to translate Japanese stuff because they love puns in Japanese stuff.
Yeah. I always appreciated it if I was watching some kind of anime where if something in the background that's written out or something on somebody's shirt or something, I always appreciated it when the subtitles would translate the environment stuff too and not just speech. Sometimes it was important.
Brand spanking new, mint in box.
Well, guess what I've got for merch?
Oh, the Mark III? Pearl in a flight suit?
No. Sadly, those do not exist as official merch. I'm so sad.
A blowtorch?
This is what?
A blowtorch?
No. A magnet.
Oh, of course.
Crying breakfast friends.
And what we're looking at is a rectangular magnet which has the logo and the characters from the show within a show. And the breakfast friends are all crying. Well, the milk's not quite crying. It's on the verge of it. Milk's obviously
spilled milk. What's wrong? Yep. Yeah, there's 4 of them on there all crying. These are the stickers that he had, and then also the folks who were crying in the TV show. And yes, the quotes are around crying for some reason. So this is an official magnet that lives on my fridge most of the time when it's not next to my computer because I'm showing it to the internet. And there are actually quite a few Crying Breakfast Friends related items for some reason.
Oh. Maybe it's one of those things that just was weird enough just to catch people.
Yeah. Well, there seems to be quite a few shows within shows now. We've got Crying Breakfast Friends, and then we had Dogcopter. And what else do we have? Well, there was Cookie Cat, which doesn't seem to be a show per se, but
it certainly has a lore to go with it.
Yes. You know what? Now that I think of this, I realized that there is another factoid that I didn't mention. Crying Breakfast Friends. This is the first time it's been mentioned, but if you go all the way back to episode 1, there is a cartoon croissant dancing around on Steven's TV in the background before it gets broken. So I'm going to guess he was probably watching that.
This show, who else would seed a show within a show about sapient breakfasts and their emotions.
Yes. In fairness, this croissant was not crying.
Oh, maybe it's an antagonist.
Well, maybe it was dancing and then it hurt itself and cried.
I think also someone there just thinks breakfast is the funniest sounding meal of the day because we have together breakfast and all the power for breakfast, and now we have crying breakfast friends. I don't think crying lunch friends would have the same ring to it.
We'll have to come back to that. For now, we certainly do have a weird relationship with food in this show. I do not count the crying breakfast friends as food that I need to make because no one ate them.
Yeah, and after what you said, I figured they'd go through to the keeper, as they say. That they wouldn't have to be replicated with their face and their tears and what have you.
Yeah, I guess that changes if somebody eats them.
I don't know, maybe there's an omnipresent threat of being eaten in the crying breakfast friends sub-universe.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have a waffle and a pear and an apple and then a carton of milk, and the milk's carton has the face. I don't know. It seems like a very strange reality.
Yeah, I mean that's like its clothes.
Yeah. Be possibly different levels of disturbing if you had to open the milk to see the crying face inside. Oh God. I didn't want to imagine that. Now I'm doing so.
Probably weirding anyone listening out from going to breakfast next.
It depends on when they listen. Me, it's hard to keep me away from breakfast regardless of what's going on. Maybe I'll go eat some right now. I didn't have my cereal today, so I just had cake for breakfast.
I just had tea. It's not there anymore.
Oh, no. Or maybe I'll just have cake again. I have a lot of cake in my house right now.
I used to get giant pretzels from the place nearby, except they don't sell them anymore.
I love pretzels. Giant pretzels. That's something that they need to make at one of the Beach City businesses so I can make them.
Yeah. The giant pretzels are a lot less common here than there.
Oh, I didn't know that. Well, I have made pretzels before. I've made soft pretzels, but not really huge ones, just more small ones.
Maybe I could try to make them.
It's tricky to get the pretzel knot right, especially if you're making a small one. And I kind of underestimated how difficult it would be the first time I made them. So I didn't leave a lot of space in the pretzel. And when they got bigger, when they were cooked, they just turned into these knots that looked surprisingly like a cartoon pile of dog poop. So they just looked like these little piles of poop. And it was hilarious. My sister and I had a lot of fun with them. I have a photo of one of my stuffed animals sitting next to it and my sister pretending to scold it like it took pretzel poop. Oh, Pikachu, you pooped. Now I'll have to put that in the pictures, in the visual version.
I just want a t-shirt that says, oh, Pikachu, you pooped now.
Yeah. I'll have to open a merch store for all the people who listen. I do really appreciate that people listen to us, though. It's been really nice to get all of your messages for y'all who are listening.
Yeah. Ivy screens the safe ones for me, so it's cool.
Yeah. Whoops.
I do have a red bubble. Maybe I should add a Pikachu you pooped.
Somehow this is Steven Universe related, and no one knows why.
Yeah, I just tag Steven Universe in the tag things in Redbubble, and people go, "What? Do you not understand cartoons? Pikachu's on a whole other show." Okay, boomer.
Look, in Gem Glow, that bubble looked so much like a Pokeball.
Yeah.
They're related. You can't convince me otherwise.
I imagine they're pretty popular to cross over in fan creations.
Oh, maybe. I know I've definitely seen some crossovers, but a lot of times I don't recognize what they're crossing over. So,
well, some of the, as we now know them, corrupted gems reminded me of not particular Pokemon, but Pokemon in general.
Mm-hmm. Especially when he had a cute little one.
Yeah, and the watermelon blowfish, especially.
Oh, yeah. I could see that. That's all my content for today. How about you?
Yeah, all mine was Pearl's emotional turmoil and Pikachu poop shirts.
Well, if we didn't talk enough about Pearl's emotions and Pearl's breakdowns in this one, let's hope we'll have a chance in the future, huh?
Yeah, I'm sure her feelings will come up again.
Maybe just a little bit. I don't know. I mean,
I can't remember if I've said it on this show before, but these characters very much show how sometimes the best way to get a grip on a character, both as a watcher, reader, whatever, and as a creator, is to start with something fairly superficial and then use that to build around. Because, I mean, you're taking Pearl and Amethyst, you very much have the neat one, the sloppy one, Felix and Oscar, Lister and Rimmer, that sort of thing.
Yes.
But as you watch them more and more, and I imagine as you write them more and more, that sort of naturally grows as they interact with each other and what's around them.
Yes. And they're both clearly, there's so much more to them than what they are to each other as like a foil to each other.
I mean, we had it with Pearl this week. We definitely saw it, how deep we got Amethyst in when she fell apart.
Right. And to some extent when she was wrestling in Tiger Millionaire.
Yes.
So she feels different from the others and feels like she has aggression that she needs to get out in some way that the others don't understand. So it's really interesting because we know that Pearl and Amethyst have this dynamic with each other, but you can also explore it on its own and make sure that it doesn't just become a bit.
Yeah, and even between the two of them, we'd got to the point we could tell when this is a serious Pearl and Amethyst fight and this isn't, compared to this is just what you do. That's
right. You don't really get a serious feeling from when, say, Amethyst is trying to get a reaction out of Pearl and puts something on her stack of stuff that isn't symmetrical.
Yeah, that you can tell when they're deeply cut up with each other compared to when it's just, oh, this again.
Yeah. Yep. They're just low-grade background radiation of their annoyance at each other.
Probably also an advantage of the show of this length in terms of each episode, having pretty few top-level regular characters.
Mm-hmm.
They get room to breathe. Obviously, as you go on, you build. I mean, Greg's almost top level. He just disappears for stretches of time and isn't up front most of the time. But you build on Greg's and Connie's and the townsfolk.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I mean, to the point that Lars and the cool kids, I mean, it's right there in the title. It's basically Lars' episode. By this point, we know Lars enough that we can appreciate how he works in this scenario.
Yeah. I think we're getting a pretty balanced overview, too, of how they work as a team and then also who they are as individuals. It's just all coming out in a very even way where nothing really seems to feel like, I mean, this, like I said, is the first time you see Pearl break down the way that she did, but none of it felt like this is out of character.
Exactly that. Yeah, that was one of the things I liked best about this, not just the character stuff itself, but that it felt like it was the same Pearl we've been watching for 27 episodes, give or take an absence.
Yes, absolutely.
And even though I said, and Greg is Pearl for this episode, that still felt like a natural point for Greg that sooner or later he does reach this line where he has to step up and be the sensible one. And it feels like it's been part of him all along.
That's true. And I think also given recent experiences, like we were saying for House Guest last time, and his reaction to how serious and deadly that mission got in the previous episode in Ocean Gem, he may be seeing that there are side effects of this crazy gem life that could possibly be lethal for his little squishy human boy. So he's kind of pulling these perspectives out from his human side, knowing that the gems don't have a human side and they're not going to understand why it's not reasonable to say, come back in 50 years.
Yeah, and even though it was very much one episode thing, I got the impression he did learn that, okay, that pretending my leg was still broken thing was the wrong thing to do, not the way I should handle my current issues with my son.
Yeah. Yeah, he didn't try to find some other inn to stay there or make excuses for himself. He just finally admitted what he did. He didn't exactly apologize for it. I mean, I think he said he was sorry for messing it up, but, he then goes forward into the next episode demonstrating a much more level head.
Yeah, and even though it's only been one episode, he didn't take on, well, it's like a lot of wacky neighbor characters in sitcoms that they just try the same thing week after week. He won't just be coming up with new thin excuses to be around his son, his house anymore.
Yeah, he doesn't need an excuse to hang out with his kid.
Yeah, I mean, we saw them quite contentedly hanging out, and his biggest source of discomfort was the crying breakfast friends, which I have no problem agreeing with him on.
Yep, definitely. So, I don't know, if you could get your wish, who do you want a focus episode about next?
Odd as it is, for now, at least I kind of don't want to go too close on Garnet.
You like her as a mystery?
This is an ongoing thing, and I know it'll change, and I'll probably change on this because it's a story where the characters grow and have more, but I don't think I want to see the big episode which shows us all Garnet's character origins and ticks in a nutshell. I mean, we saw some pretty clear instant deep dives on the other two, but I think that works better with the sort of characters they are.
I see.
Whereas I think Garnet not knowing exactly what's going on in her head from moment to moment is part of her appeal, at least for me.
I would somewhat agree with that, because I believe we've talked in these terms before, is that not telling us something tells you something. And it's cool to see somebody who is reticent like that.
I mean, I suppose you could do a Garnet-focused episode without doing too deep on her character if it was just more about what she was doing than why she was doing it or what she was thinking about it.
It kind of feels like if you asked her a question, she would answer it. It's just that she's not about to answer you if you don't ask.
Yeah, particularly if your little ward, nephew, whatever, is just not asking follow-up questions, as has been addressed.
Yeah. So who do you want, if not her?
Let's have a think. I've kind of had my onion episode.
Yeah. You'd take another one, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah. He could steal the spotlight for a while, and well, I just don't think I'd understand him anymore by the end of it. But
I think you got a good read on him. Equally inscrutable in a completely different way. Just want to see what comes. You don't have a wish list, huh?
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of the ones I'd say we've kind of already had. We've had some good looks at Amazon. We saw right into Pearl's Soul today, and Greg last week, and I mean, the whole show is Stephen. And we've even seen Lars and Sadie.
That's true.
On them. So I'm not quite at the point where I'm sitting around going, I really need to know what makes Mr. Smiley tick, and I need a whole episode about that.
Oh, Mr. Smiley episode. Yeah, it isn't so far particularly called for. You don't want to know the emotional trauma of Sad Waffle.
Well, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put it past this show just to do an episode which is just the shows within a shows. Just a short on Dogcopter and the Breakfast Friends and maybe a Cookie Cat commercial.
So should we wrap up with me telling you what the title of the next one is, or should we save it until we're about to watch
Tell me about it, so I got a tease to ponder on.
Okay. The next episode is episode 29, and that is called Secret Team.
Secret Team.
Yes.
So I say this every time, that this show, your even money, it could be exactly what it says, that someone forms a team that others don't know about. Or it could be something alluded to in one conversation which doesn't actually structurally hit on the plot at all.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a guess that due to some kind of shenanigans, someone has to form a group of people without letting certain other people know about them.
Well, we'll have to discuss that in more detail when we actually start that episode.
Yeah.
Because you know that I'll poke you for predictions.
Yep.
Yay.
And my ability to get things correct or not will apparently just be some random dice roll.
All right. Well, if you don't have anything else to say, I think I'm out of stuff for Space Race as well.
Yeah, and I think I am too.
Okay.
So we'll
wrap this one then.
We say good night to you all. I mean, feel free to give us your own opinions on Space Race, or who you'd like to see an episode all about. Yeah. Maybe there's someone we just both haven't immediately thought of that we've met in the past 28 episodes that we just didn't think of right now.
Yeah. Well, you know, I've seen the whole show, and I could give you a laundry list of episodes I want. So there's still stuff I want to know. But, as it's been established, I'm a pretty enthusiastic nerd about this show. So I want everything. I mean, if you had an episode where they're all playing in a sandbox for the whole time, I would watch it.
The type of sandcastles they make be very character expressive.
Well, let's hope we get to see that. Well, thank you for joining us, everyone.
Bye-bye now.
Bye. You've been listening to Ivy and Daria on Not So Giant Women.
You can find episodes of the show in video form by looking up Not So Giant Women on YouTube.
Or in audio form at anchor.fm/NotSoGiantWomen or your podcatcher of choice. You can also find us on Facebook.
Audio production by Daria.
Video production and music by Ivy.
Daria can also be heard on Podsploitation, the Ozploitation podcast.
And Ivy at her Steven Universe fan blog at love-takes-work.tumblr.com.
Steven Universe was created by Rebecca Sugar and remains property of Cartoon Network.
No infringement is intended.